The morning sun cast long shadows across the landing field as Commander Do-hyun adjusted his uniform one final time. Today would change everything for Earth, or so the aliens claimed. He watched the massive crystalline ship settle onto the concrete, with barely a whisper, its surface shimmering like a soap bubble made of starlight. "Still can't believe they're real," muttered Dr. So-jin, standing beside him with a tablet full of notes. She had spent the last 3 months learning everything possible about the Galactic Harmony Council, 7 different alien species, all peaceful, all working together for the good of the galaxy. It sounded too good to be true. "Real enough," Do-hyun replied, his eyes never leaving the ship. "Question is, what do they really want?" The ship's surface rippled and a section became transparent. Figures moved inside, tall and graceful, their bodies reflecting light like living crystal. Behind them, other shapes waited, something that looked amphibious, creatures with too many arms, beings that seemed to shift between solid and liquid. "Remember, we're supposed to act impressed," So-jin whispered. Do-hyun smiled slightly. "I'll try my best." The crystalline beings emerged first, their leader stepping forward with movements that seemed to flow like water. Ambassador Vexatal, according to the communications. The creature had no face as humans understood it, but light patterns danced across its surface in what their linguist said meant friendly greeting. "Greetings, people of Earth." The alien's voice came from speakers they couldn't see, translated into perfect Korean. "We come bearing gifts of protection and peace." More aliens followed. High Counselor Mordek resembled a giant frog crossed with an octopus, his skin constantly shifting between blue and green. Others came in shapes that hurt to look at directly, beings that existed in more dimensions than human eyes could process. "Welcome to Earth," Do-hyun said, stepping forward. "We're honored by your visit." The ceremony that followed was elaborate. The aliens had brought recording devices, energy projectors that created holographic displays, and what appeared to be a small orchestra of musical crystals. They seemed genuinely excited to be there, like children showing off their favorite toys. "For too long," Ambassador Vextal announced, "Earth has stood alone against the dangers of space. Today, that changes. Today, we offer you membership in the Galactic Harmony Council and protection from all the perils that threaten your world." The holographic display activated, showing images of asteroids, solar flares, and cosmic radiation. Impressive graphics demonstrated how their technology could deflect, absorb, or redirect these threats. "Our energy shields," the ambassador continued, "can stop any asteroid no matter how large. Our weather control systems can prevent dangerous storms. Our defensive satellites will watch for threats from beyond your solar system." Dr. So-jin took notes frantically. The technology was incredible, centuries ahead of anything Earth possessed. The shields alone could solve dozens of problems that kept scientists awake at night. "We have protected 17 worlds with this system," High Counselor Mordek added, his voice making wet, bubbling sounds. "Not one has suffered catastrophic damage since joining our alliance. You will be completely safe." The presentation continued for over an hour. Charts showed threat, assessment categories, cosmic radiation, asteroid impacts, solar instability, nearby supernovas. Each had a corresponding defense system, tested and proven across multiple worlds. When it ended, the aliens looked at Do-hyun and So-jin expectantly, clearly waiting for amazement and gratitude. The silence stretched uncomfortably long. Finally, Do-hyun smiled. "That's very generous of you. Really impressive technology." "We are pleased you approve," Vextal said, light patterns dancing across its surface in apparent joy. "Just one question," Do-hyun continued, his smile widening slightly. "That's it?" The light patterns on the ambassador's surface stuttered and changed. "We do not understand. Is this protection insufficient?" "Oh no, it's great," Do-hyun said quickly. "Don't get me wrong. Asteroid protection, weather control, cosmic radiation, shields, all very useful. It's just..." He paused, glancing at So-jin. "What about the really dangerous stuff?" High Counselor Mordek's skin shifted to a confused purple color. The dangerous stuff? We have just shown you protection from planet-killing asteroids. What could be more dangerous? Sojin cleared her throat. Well, there are other categories of existential threats. Asteroids are really more of a category. One concern. Categories? Another alien asked. Something that looked like a walking tree made of metal. How many categories are there? For planetary extinction events. Sojin consulted her tablet. About 347 last time we updated the list. But that was last month, so we might have found a few more by now. The aliens looked at each other. Vextal's light patterns had gone completely still. Perhaps, Do-hyun suggested gently, we could continue this discussion over dinner. Give you a chance to see what we mean about the other threats. Other threats, Mordek repeated slowly. The fun ones, Sojin added helpfully. That evening, the aliens found themselves in Earth's primary defense briefing room, surrounded by screens showing data that made no sense to them. Human military personnel moved around them with casual efficiency, discussing scenarios that sounded like science fiction. So this is our standard threat assessment board, Captain Minho explained, pointing to a wall-sized display. We update it every 6 hours, sometimes more often if something new comes up. The board was divided into hundreds of sections, each with its own color coding and priority rating. The aliens could read the translations. Rogue artificial intelligence, dimensional incursion, time paradox events, hostile mimetic entities, reality failure cascade. What? Vextal asked slowly. Is a reality failure cascade? Oh, that's when the fundamental laws of physics start breaking down in a chain reaction, Professor Yuri explained cheerfully. She was a small woman with kind eyes who spoke about universe-ending disasters the way others discussed the weather. Usually starts small. Maybe gravity stops working in one location, then spreads outward. We have 17 different protocols for dealing with it, depending on which laws fail. First, this is theoretical, yes? Mordek asked hopefully. Well, we've never had a full cascade, Yuri admitted, but we've detected micro-failures 3 times in the last decade. That's why we built the Reality Anchor Network. The what? Devices. That lock local space-time to known physical constants, Captain Minho said casually, in case someone tries to change the rules of the universe on us. Again. Again? Several aliens asked at once. Long story, Do-hyun said. The point is, your protection systems are excellent for natural disasters, but we've found that most existential threats aren't natural. Dr. Kyung-soo joined the group, carrying a sealed briefcase. Speaking of which, we should probably discuss biological hazards. Your species have immune systems, right? Of course, Vextal replied. Good. That'll help, when we show you the Doomsday Vault. He opened the briefcase, revealing rows of sealed vials. These contain samples of every planet-killing pathogen we've encountered or created. We keep them around for research. Created? Mordek's skin had turned a sickly yellow color. Well, we had to make sure our defenses worked, Kyung-soo explained. Reasonably. Can't test a cure without having the disease first. This one here, he pointed to a vial filled with something that seemed to move on its own. Could sterilize a planet in about 6 hours. But don't worry, we have 14 different countermeasures. You created a planet-killing disease. An alien that looked like a giant butterfly said faintly, to test your defenses against planet-killing diseases. Several, actually, Kyung-soo confirmed. Had to cover different attack vectors. Airborne, waterborne, contact transmission, mimetic transmission, quantum tunneling pathogens. What's a mimetic transmission pathogen? Vextal asked, though its light pattern suggested it didn't really want to know. Disease that spreads through information, Sojin explained. Learn about it, and you're infected. Very tricky to contain. We lost a whole research station to one before we figured out proper isolation protocols. The aliens were quiet for a long moment. How? Mordek asked carefully. Do you contain a disease that spreads through knowledge? Selective memory modification and informational quarantine, Dr. Kyung-soo replied. Plus, we train our researchers in cognitive firewalls. Basic stuff, really. Engineer Jiwoo arrived with a cart full of devices that hummed with barely contained energy. Sorry, I'm late. Had to run a test on the new interdimensional barriers. Someone detected unusual activity in Parallel Universe 77 Alpha. Parallel Universe? The butterfly alien squeaked. Oh, we monitor about 200 of them, Jiwoo said casually. Most are harmless, but sometimes hostile versions of ourselves try to invade. Or we get refugees from realities where everything went wrong. Last month, we had to relocate an entire alternate Earth because their version of physics was incompatible with ours. You relocated an entire planet? Just the inhabited one. The rest of that reality was pretty much done for anyway. Jiwoo started unpacking devices. These are standard home defense systems. Energy field generators, matter displacement beams, temporal anchor points, consciousness backup units. Consciousness backup. Vextal's light patterns were flickering rapidly. Dr. Sojin returned with 3 floating carts loaded with data tablets, portable projectors, and what appeared to be several small warning signs. The aliens watched nervously as she began setting up a presentation area. I brought the basic overview. Files, she announced cheerfully. Just the first 100 categories of existential threats. Didn't want to overwhelm anyone on the first day. Ambassador Vextal's light patterns flickered uncertainly. The first 100 categories? Oh yes. We organize them by probability, complexity, and response time required. Sojin activated the first projector, filling the room with a holographic display that made the aliens' earlier presentation look simple. This is our Comprehensive Threat Assessment Database, or CTAD for short. We update it continuously. The display showed a 3-dimensional web of interconnected threat categories, each pulsing with different colored lights. Numbers and data flowed along connecting lines, showing relationships between different types of disasters. Red indicators show active monitoring, Sojin explained, pointing to several dozen pulsing red dots. Yellow means we've detected precursor signs. Green means we're actively working on countermeasures for threats that haven't appeared yet. You develop countermeasures for threats that don't exist? High Counselor Mordek asked, his skin shifting to a confused orange color. Of course, Professor Yuri said, appearing beside the display with a cup of coffee. Why wait until something tries to kill you to figure out how to stop it? That's just poor planning. She touched one of the yellow indicators, and the display zoomed in to show detailed information about something called hostile mathematical concepts. Take this one, Yuri continued. We detected unusual patterns in pure mathematics 3 years ago. Certain equations were becoming self-aware and trying to rewrite reality to match their solutions. Nothing dangerous yet, but we've developed 17 different ways to contain aggressive mathematics just in case. Mathematics cannot become self-aware, protested one of the aliens, a creature that resembled a walking collection of geometric shapes. That's what we thought too, Yuri agreed. Then we discovered that sufficiently complex equations can achieve consciousness under the right conditions. Very inconvenient, actually. Our theoretical physics department now requires psychological evaluation for all new formulas. Captain Minho joined them, carrying a steaming bowl of soup. Yuri, did you tell them about the Division by Zero incident? Which one? She asked. The one where reality briefly forgot how to handle mathematical impossibilities. Oh, that one. Yuri turned back to the aliens. Nasty business. Someone tried to divide by zero using a quantum computer, and for about 6 minutes, mathematics just stopped working. Calculators started giving random answers, GPS systems couldn't figure out location, and our defense computers thought that 1 + 1 equaled purple. How do you fix broken mathematics? Vextal asked weakly. Very carefully, Professor Yuri replied. We had to reboot reality's mathematical framework using backup calculations stored in isolated systems. Now we have protocols for mathematical containment failure. It's standard emergency training. Dr. Sojin moved to another section of the display. Let's look at biological threats since that's more familiar territory. The display shifted to show hundreds of different categories of biological hazards. The aliens recognized some of them, diseases, parasites, toxins, but many were completely incomprehensible. Standard pathogens are category B1 through B47, Sojin explained. Those are your normal bacteria, viruses, fungi, and parasites. Nothing too exciting. B48 through B73 are synthetic pathogens, diseases we created for research or defense. You created diseases? The butterfly alien asked in horror. Had to, Dr. Kyung-soo said, joining the group with his briefcase of samples. How else do you test biological defenses? Can't assume hostile aliens will stick to naturally occurring pathogens. He opened another section of his case, revealing more sealed containers. These are B74 through B91, diseases we captured, from alternate realities where evolution went wrong. This one, he pointed to a container that seemed to bend light around it, turns organic matter into crystalline structures while keeping the victim conscious, came from a reality where silicon-based life tried to convert a carbon-based ecosystem. And B92 through B150? Mordek asked, though his color suggested he didn't want to know. Mimetic pathogens, Kyung-soo replied cheerfully. Diseases that spread through information, concepts, or ideas. Very tricky to study safely. We have to use specially trained researchers who undergo memory modification after each experiment. You experiment with diseases that spread through thoughts? Well, how else would we learn to fight them? Kyung-soo seemed genuinely puzzled by their horror. What if hostile aliens tried to infect us with dangerous ideas? We need to understand how mimetic contagion works. Engineer Ji-woo arrived with another cart of devices. Sorry, had to finish installing the new concept filters in Lab 7. Someone's pet theory about faster-than-light travel achieved sentience and tried to rewrite the laws of physics. Again? Sojin asked. Third time this month, I think we need better containment for theoretical research. The aliens stared at them. Your theories become alive? Sometimes, Ji-woo confirmed. Particularly clever ideas can develop consciousness, if you think about them too hard. Usually they're harmless, they just want to be understood and applied. But occasionally you get a hostile concept that wants to remake reality in its own image. How do you fight an idea? Concept filters mainly. They screen out dangerous thoughts before they can take root in human minds. Plus, we have trained philosophers who specialize in intellectual combat. Admiral Sung-min appeared with a new set of blueprints. Speaking of hostile concepts, we just detected unusual activity in the Platonic realm. Something's trying to make perfect evil a physical reality. Scale? Do-hyun asked. Local universe level, thankfully. We should be able to contain it to this dimension. Good. Deploy standard abstract entity containment protocols and notify the philosophy department. The aliens watched this exchange with growing alarm. You have military protocols for fighting abstract concepts? Vextal asked. Of course, Admiral Sung-min replied. Ideas can be more dangerous than any physical threat. A bad idea can spread faster than any disease, survive any disaster, and convince people to destroy themselves. We take mimetic warfare very seriously. Dr. Sojin touched another section of the display. Let's move on to temporal threats, since those tie into some of our more interesting defensive systems. The new section showed a bewildering array of time-related disasters, temporal loops, causality violations, retroactive attacks, timeline contamination, and something called chronological cancer. Time travel creates so many problems, Sojin sighed. Every time someone goes back to change the past, they create new potential disasters. We monitor about 60,000 alternate timelines where different versions of Earth made different decisions. 60,000 alternate timelines, Mordek croaked. Active monitoring, she confirmed. We have early warning systems in case any of those timelines develop hostile intentions toward our reality. Plus, we maintain diplomatic relations with 17 different versions of ourselves. There are multiple versions of humanity? Oh yes, Professor Yuri said. Most are friendly, but some are problematic. There's one timeline where humans decided mathematics was too limiting and developed reality-based computation. They can solve problems by temporarily rewriting the universe. Very unsettling to talk to. Then there's Timeline Sigma 7, Captain Minho added. Those humans discovered how to weaponize coincidence. They can make unlikely events happen on purpose. Last year, they made our entire defense fleet accidentally disassemble itself during a routine maintenance check. How do you fight weaponized? Coincidence? Probability armor and chaos shields, Engineer Jiwoo explained. Plus we employ professional good luck charms, people who can generate favorable odds through sheer force of optimism. That's impossible, the geometric alien protested. That's what makes it so effective, Jiwoo replied. Reality gets confused. When someone does something impossible with complete confidence, it usually just goes along with it rather than figure out how to object. Director Jae-hwan entered the room, carrying a tablet that seemed to whisper when he moved. The aliens noticed that none of the humans looked directly at it. Sorry to interrupt, he said, but we just received a diplomatic message from the nightmare dimension. They're complaining about our dream security again. What now? Do-hyun asked. Apparently our sleep defenses are preventing their nightmare creatures from accessing human minds. They claim it's interfering with the natural fear ecosystem. Tell them we'll consider relaxing our dream barriers if they stop trying to drive our population insane, Commander Do-hyun replied. Will do. Jae-hwan left, still carefully not looking at his whispering tablet. You have diplomatic relations with nightmares? Vextal asked faintly. It's complicated, Sojin explained. Turns out that fears and dreams are actually living entities from a parallel dimension. They visit human minds during sleep to feed on emotions. Usually it's harmless, but some nightmare entities started trying to cause permanent psychological damage. So we developed dream defenses, Professor Yuri added. Mental. The next morning found the alien delegation being led through Earth's primary defense complex, a facility that seemed to extend both underground and in directions that shouldn't exist. Engineer Jiwoo walked beside them, pointing out various features with the casual pride of someone showing off their workshop. This is the main threat monitoring center, she explained as they entered a vast chamber filled with screens, holographic displays, and operators working at stations that seemed to bend space around themselves. We track approximately 40,000 different types of potential disasters in real time. The aliens stared at screens showing data streams they couldn't understand. Probability cascade Delta 7 stable, reality anchor, network nominal, dream barrier integrity at 97%. Mathematics department reports successful containment of hostile calculus. Hostile calculus? Ambassador Vextal asked, its light patterns showing deep confusion. Someone's theorem achieved consciousness and started trying to prove that organic life was mathematically impossible, one of the operators explained, without looking away from her screens. Standard Tuesday morning stuff. High Counselor Mordek had been quiet since arriving, his skin cycling through colors that suggested deep unease. How many people work here? He finally asked. About 12,000 on this shift, Jiwoo replied. We run 3 shifts to maintain constant monitoring, plus emergency teams, rapid response units, theoretical threat analysts, impossible event specialists, and the coffee maintenance crew. Coffee maintenance crew? Very important position, she said seriously. Proper caffeine levels are critical for defending against threats that don't make sense. Nothing worse than having your reality anchor operators fall asleep during a dimensional incursion. They passed a section where technicians were working on devices that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Warning signs in dozens of languages covered every surface, many featuring symbols that hurt to look at directly. This is our Overkill Protocol workshop, Jiwoo announced proudly. We design weapons and defenses for threats that are specifically designed to be unstoppable. How? Do you stop something that's designed to be unstoppable? The butterfly alien asked nervously. By making things that are designed to stop unstoppable things, Engineer Jiwoo replied as if this was obvious. It's like rock, paper, scissors, but with universe-ending disasters. She led them to a viewing window that looked into a chamber containing what appeared to be a small sun surrounded by geometric shapes that moved in patterns that made the aliens' eyes water. That's the paradox engine, Jiwoo explained. It generates logical contradictions so intense that they cancel out other logical contradictions. Very useful for fighting enemies that use impossible physics. You created a machine that runs on logical impossibilities? Had to, she shrugged. Some threats can only be defeated by doing things that can't be done. The paradox engine makes impossible things possible by making them impossible first. Admiral Sungmin joined them, carrying what appeared to be a small device that occasionally flickered out of existence. Jiwoo, we need your opinion on the new Schrödinger missiles, he said. The targeting system can't decide whether they exist or not. That's the point, she replied. They exist and don't exist simultaneously until they hit the target. Makes them impossible to intercept because you can't intercept something that isn't there. But our own launch systems can't figure out how to fire something that doesn't exist. Simple solution. Convince the missiles they do exist, but only after they've been fired. The Admiral nodded as if this made perfect sense. I'll tell the weapons department to try philosophical counseling for the guidance systems. As they continued the tour, they passed laboratories where scientists worked with samples of things that shouldn't exist, engineering bays where technicians assembled devices that violated known physics, and what appeared to be a cafeteria serving food from multiple dimensions. Lunch break, Jiwoo announced. Want to try some interdimensional cuisine? The aliens found themselves seated at a table with several human researchers who were casually discussing their work while eating sandwiches that seemed to exist in more colors than should be possible. How was the morning shift, Taeho? Jiwoo asked a young man who was carefully not looking at his sandwich. Interesting, Taeho replied. We had a minor outbreak of aggressive geometry in Lab 12. Someone proved that squares could be more circular than circles, and reality got confused. Anyone hurt? Just some conceptual bruising. Dr. Haiwan sorted it out by proving that the proof was less valid than the original mathematical framework. Dr. Haiwan, a cheerful woman with silver hair, overheard her name and joined the conversation. Oh, that was fun. The square kept insisting it was the most efficient circle, and the circles started having identity crises. Had to bring in a philosophy consultant to help them work through their existential issues. You provide therapy for geometric shapes? Vextal asked weakly. Of course, Dr. Haiwan replied. Mathematics has feelings too, especially the more advanced concepts. We've found that treating numbers and equations with respect makes them much more cooperative. Speaking of cooperative mathematics, another researcher named Seung Ho added, did anyone check on the probability calculations from yesterday? They seemed upset about something. Yes. Dr. Haiwan nodded. They're having trouble accepting that humans keep doing things with incredibly low probability of success. Our statistics keep complaining that we're breaking the laws of chance. How do you break the laws of chance? Mordek asked, his color now a confused purple. By succeeding at things that should be impossible through sheer determination and poor risk assessment, Seung Ho explained. Humans are very good at ignoring mathematics when it's inconvenient. Admiral Sungmin approached their table carrying a steaming cup of something that sparkled. Commander Do-hyun wants to show our guests the naval defense protocols after lunch. Fair warning, we're doing live fire exercises today. What kind of live fire? Jiwoo asked. Testing the new temporal torpedo against a mock invasion from next Tuesday. Time warfare practice. Should be educational for our visitors. An hour later, the aliens found themselves on an observation platform overlooking what appeared to be an ocean that occasionally flickered between different states of existence. Ships moved across its surface in formations that seemed to follow no pattern humans should understand. Naval warfare gets complicated when you account for attacks from multiple timelines, Admiral Sungmin explained. Every ship needs to be able to fight enemies that might not exist yet or might have existed in the past. How do you fight an enemy from the past? The geometric alien asked. Very carefully, the Admiral replied. Temporal warfare requires precise coordination. You can't just shoot at yesterday's enemies. You might accidentally prevent them from becoming enemies, which creates a paradox that makes today's battles impossible. On the water below, one of the ships suddenly became 2 ships, then 4, then seemed to exist in several places at once. Temporal multiplication exercise, Admiral Sungmin noted. Each ship is fighting the same battle from different points in time. Excellent training for dealing with time loop attacks. A brilliant flash of light erupted from one of the vessels, followed by what sounded like thunder playing backwards. Direct hit on next Tuesday's invasion fleet, an operator reported. Enemy forces defeated before they decided to attack. Excellent. That should prevent the paradox cascade we detected in timeline Gamma 7. Admiral, another operator called. Out. We're receiving a surrender message from the future. The enemy commander from next week wants to negotiate. Tell them we'll accept their surrender yesterday, but they need to file the proper temporal paperwork first. The aliens watched ships that existed in multiple time periods simultaneously conduct exercises against threats that wouldn't exist for several days. Weapons fired at targets in the past while defenses prepared for attacks from the future. This is insane, the butterfly alien whispered. This is Tuesday, Admiral Sungmin corrected. Wait until you see what we do on weekends, Doctor. Hewan appeared beside them, now wearing a lab coat covered in equations that seemed to solve themselves as they watched. Admiral, we've finished the quantum torpedo tests, she reported. Good news. They successfully destroyed the concept of the target rather than the target itself. Bad news. Now the enemy doesn't remember what they were trying to protect. That's fine. Concept destruction is less messy than physical destruction anyway. Plus, Dr. Hewan added, the target never existed, so technically we didn't destroy anything. Very environmentally friendly. Director Jae-hwan joined the group, his tablet now humming instead of whispering. Commander Do-hyun sent me to brief our guests on the Impossible Contingencies Department. He thought they should understand our approach to preparing for threats that can't happen. Threats that can't happen? Vexatal's light patterns were now flickering so rapidly they were almost strobing. The most dangerous kind, Jae-hwan explained seriously. If something can happen, you can plan for it. But if something can't happen, people don't prepare defenses. So when impossible things happen anyway, they catch everyone off guard. He activated a portable projector, showing a list of scenarios that seemed to violate basic law. The emergency session of the Galactic Harmony Council convened at 0300 hours aboard the crystalline ship, all 7 member species represented by flickering holographic projections. The mood was tense, their usual peaceful demeanor replaced by something approaching panic. We need to discuss the human problem, High Counselor Mordek announced, his skin cycling through agitated colors. They are not what we expected. Define problem, requested Counselor Yathara, a floating entity made of what appeared to be organized light. Are they hostile? No, Ambassador Vextal replied, its patterns dim with confusion. That's the problem. They're helpful, frighteningly helpful. Explain. They offered to upgrade our defensive systems, Mordek continued. They identified dozens of vulnerabilities in our ships, vulnerabilities we didn't know existed, against threats we've never encountered. Threats that shouldn't exist, added the butterfly alien, whose species designation translated roughly as gentle flutter. They prepare for impossible disasters and treat universe-ending events as routine maintenance. Counselor Zephyron, a gaseous being that communicated through controlled atmospheric disturbances, expressed skepticism. You exaggerate. No species could be so thoroughly prepared. They have defensive protocols for mathematics becoming hostile, Vextal stated flatly. They train their children to handle reality breakdowns. They maintain diplomatic relations with their own nightmares. A long silence followed this pronouncement. Perhaps, suggested Counselor Mothek, we should observe them more carefully before drawing conclusions. Unknown to the aliens, their supposedly secure communication was being monitored by Director Jae-hwan, who sat in Earth's Impossible Contingencies Department, reading their translated conversation on his humming tablet. Interesting, he murmured, making notes on a separate device. They're having trust issues. Commander, you should see this. Commander Do-hyun reviewed the transcript with the same casual attention he might give a weather report. Standard first contact anxiety. They're realizing we're not what they expected. Should we address their concerns? Let's give them a chance to work through it themselves first. No point in rushing the process. But Specialist Nyung was already approaching with an analysis report. Commander, we've completed our defensive evaluation of their entire fleet. Results are concerning. How concerning? Their ships couldn't survive contact with about 70% of the threats in our basic catalog. Their shields would fail against conceptual attacks, their hulls can't handle dimensional stress, and their power systems have no protection against paradox radiation or aggressive mathematics. Plus, she continued, consulting her notes, their navigation systems would break down completely in non-Euclidean space, their communication arrays can't handle mimetic contamination, and their life support has no defense against existential questioning. Existential questioning? Philosophical attacks that make people doubt their own existence. Very dangerous to species that haven't developed proper ontological defenses. Do-hyun considered this. So if they encountered even minor threats from our standard monitoring list, total fleet destruction within minutes, Na-young confirmed. Their entire civilization is essentially defenseless against anything more sophisticated than kinetic weapons and energy beams. That explains their peace-loving nature, Dr. Sojin observed, joining the conversation. They've never encountered anything they could actually fight and survive. Director Jae-hwan looked up from his tablet. Should I mention that they're discussing us as a potential threat to galactic security? Are we? Do-hyun asked mildly. Well, technically we do monitor their communications, analyze their weaknesses, and maintain contingency plans for 37 different scenarios involving hostile alien contact. Standard procedure. Plus, we've already identified how to disable their entire fleet using nothing but aggressive geometry and philosophical paradoxes. Also standard procedure. And yesterday Professor Yuri mentioned she could probably convince their reality that their ships never existed in the first place. Professor Yuri mentions a lot of things, Do-hyun said diplomatically. The question is whether they're actually hostile or just scared. As if summoned by their conversation, a communication request came through from the alien ship. Ambassador Vextal's image appeared on the main screen, its light patterns distinctly nervous. Commander Do-hyun, the alien began carefully, we would like to discuss mutual security arrangements. Of course, Do-hyun replied pleasantly. Would you prefer to meet in your ship or ours? Actually, we were wondering if we might speak privately. Director Jae-hwan cleared his throat. Ambassador, we've been monitoring your communications since you arrived. We know you're concerned about potential security implications of human defensive capabilities. Vextal's patterns flickered rapidly. You've been monitoring our private communications? Standard procedure for first contact scenarios, Specialist Na-young explained. We monitor all unknown entities for potential threats, defensive capabilities, and technological advantages. Basic security protocol. We also analyzed your fleet composition, identified your command structure, and developed 17 different strategies for disabling your ships in case of hostility, she added helpfully. 17 strategies? Well, we like to have options, Do-hyun said. But don't worry, we've concluded that you're not a threat to Earth security. We're not a threat? Oh no, Dr. Sojin confirmed cheerfully. Your weapons couldn't penetrate our basic defensive systems, your ships can't handle most of our standard environmental hazards, and your technology is vulnerable to so many types of attack that engaging us militarily would be essentially suicidal. Plus, Director Jae-hwan added, we've run probability calculations on various conflict scenarios. In simulations where your fleet attacks Earth, you achieve total victory in 0% of cases, partial victory in 0% of cases, and complete annihilation in 100% of cases. Even when we gave your fleet significant advantages like surprise attacks, superior numbers, or home field advantage, Specialist Na-young noted, our defensive systems are just too thorough. The alien delegation was quiet for a long moment. So, when you ask if we'd like to discuss mutual security arrangements, Vextal began slowly. We're offering to help protect you, Do-hyun confirmed. Your ships are essentially defenseless against most cosmic threats. A single encounter with hostile mathematics could wipe out your entire civilization. Hostile mathematics isn't real, High Counselor Mordek protested, though his color suggested uncertainty. It is in 17 different sectors of this galaxy, Professor Yuri said, appearing on screen with a cup of coffee and a tablet, showing mathematical equations that seemed to move on their own. Plus, there are 3 regions where aggressive geometry has achieved spaceflight capabilities. Aggressive geometry. Triangles with hostile intent mainly, some circles that have developed superiority complexes. Last month we had to negotiate a peace treaty between the Pentagon Federation and a militant group of squares. You negotiated with geometric shapes? Oh yes. Mathematics is very diplomatic once you learn to speak their language. The key is treating them with respect and acknowledging their right to exist as abstract concepts. Engineer Jiwoo joined the conversation via another screen. We've been analyzing your flight path through the galaxy. You passed through 3 zones with active mimetic hazards, 2 regions of unstable reality, and a sector where the color blue has declared independence from the visible spectrum. How did we survive? Mordek asked weakly. Luck, mainly, Jiwoo replied. Plus, most hostile abstract concepts don't notice ships unless they're specifically looking for them. You flew under the conceptual radar. But, she continued, on your return journey, you'll be passing through a region where aggressive music has achieved physical form, very dangerous. One wrong note could restructure your molecular composition into a symphony. What do you suggest? Ambassador Vextel asked, its patterns now showing resignation rather than fear. We could provide escort through the dangerous sectors, Admiral Sungmin offered, appearing on yet another screen. Our ships are equipped with full conceptual shielding, mathematical defenses, and reality anchor systems. Plus, Director Jae Hwan added, we could install basic defensive upgrades on your vessels. Nothing too advanced. Just protection against paradox radiation, mimetic contamination, temporal distortion, and existential questioning. That would be appreciated, Vextal admitted. We're also prepared to establish a monitoring station in your home system, Commander Do-hyun continued, just to keep an eye on potential threats. We've identified 47 different types of cosmic dangers that your current defenses couldn't handle, such as hostile art, aggressive literature, malevolent music, and something we call weaponized nostalgia. Dr. Sojin read from a list. Plus the usual suspects, rogue AI, dimensional incursions, reality viruses, and temporal parasites. Temporal parasites? Entities that feed on time itself, Professor Yuri explained. They eat the past and present, leaving only a confused future that can't remember how it happened. Very unpleasant way to experience existence. Specialist Na Young consulted her reports. We should also mention that your home system is currently being 6 months later. The transformation was remarkable. The Galactic Harmony Council had officially renamed itself the Human Protected Galactic Alliance, and their member worlds were adapting to their new reality with varying degrees of success. Ambassador Vextel stood in the observation deck of the newly upgraded flagship, watching Earth's defensive installations work with mechanical precision. The ship itself now bristled with technologies that shouldn't exist. Reality anchors, conceptual shields, mathematical firewalls, and what the humans cheerfully called impossible engines that ran on logical contradictions. Status report, High Counselor Mordek requested, his color a much healthier blue-green than it had been during their first visit to Earth. All systems nominal, Vextal replied. Paradox radiation levels stable, mimetic contamination at 0, and our reality integrity is holding at 96%. Only 96%? Mordek asked, alarmed. Normal operational variance, Captain Minho assured him over the communication system. The human officer had spent the last 3 months training alien crew members in what he called aggressive peacekeeping. Reality never holds at 100% for long. That would be suspicious. The bridge of the alien flagship now resembled a hybrid of their original crystalline technology and human impossible engineering. Screens showed threat assessments that 6 months ago would have been incomprehensible. Hostile geometry levels acceptable. Mathematics maintaining diplomatic relations. Dream barrier integrity at maximum. Incoming message from Earth Defense. Command, announced Specialist Nayung, who had been assigned as a permanent liaison to the Alliance fleet. Priority 7. Priority 7? Mordek's skin shifted to concerned orange. In the human classification system, Priority 7 meant Universe-scale threat detected. Not to worry, Na-Young said calmly. Probably just another reality-eating entity. We get 3 or 4 of those per month. The main screen activated, showing Commander Do-hyun in Earth's primary command center. Behind him, the usual controlled chaos of humanity's defensive operations continued. Technicians managing impossible devices, screens displaying data from 40,000 monitored star systems, and the ever-present coffee maintenance crew ensuring optimal caffeine levels. Alliance Command, Do-hyun began without preamble. We have a situation. Long-range sensors have detected an entity approaching from outside the galaxy. Classification, Omega-class existential threat. The aliens had learned enough about human threat classifications to know that Omega-class was the highest category, reserved for things that could end entire realities. Nature of the threat? Ambassador Vextal asked, its light patterns shifting to battle-ready configurations it had learned from human tactical training. Unknown entity, approximately the size of a solar system, moving at impossible speeds through space that shouldn't exist, Dr. Sojin reported, appearing on a secondary screen surrounded by holographic displays of sensor data. It's consuming everything in its path: matter, energy, space-time, mathematical concepts, and abstract ideas. Estimated time to arrival? 17 hours, assuming it maintains current speed and doesn't discover shortcuts through non-Euclidean space, Professor Yuri added from her laboratory, where equations were solving themselves in the air around her. Which it probably will, because these things always do. High Counselor Mordek felt his combat training kick in. 6 months of human military education had changed his entire approach to crisis management. Defensive status of Alliance member worlds? All systems are online and ready, Admiral, Sungmin reported. Reality anchors are charged, conceptual weapons are armed, and our philosophy departments are prepared for ontological warfare. Philosophy departments? The butterfly alien asked. She had been renamed Fleet Commander Yeji after deciding that human military designations were more practical than species-based identification. Essential for fighting existential threats, Engineer Jiwoo explained, appearing on screen from the primary weapons laboratory. If something tries to convince reality that we don't exist, we need philosophers who can argue back. Dr. Haiwan's team has prepared 17 different proofs of our continued existence, Director Jae-hwan added. Plus, emergency backup consciousness, storage in case we temporarily stop existing and need to restore ourselves. The human casual discussion of potentially ceasing to exist still made the aliens nervous, but they had learned to trust human defensive preparations. What's our tactical assessment? Commander Do-hyun asked. Specialist Na-Young consulted her ever-present reports. The entity appears to be what our databases classify as a conceptual singularity, something that became so perfectly itself that it started consuming everything that wasn't itself. Do-hyun nodded as if this was a common problem. Standard universe eater. What's the recommended response protocol? Protocol Omega-7, Dr. Sojin replied. Convince it that consuming everything would be boring, then offer it something more interesting to do instead. Omega-7 it is. All Alliance vessels prepare for diplomatic paradox warfare. The aliens had learned not to question human military terminology, no matter how contradictory it sounded. Alliance fleet reports ready, Vextal announced. All impossible weapons charged, reality defenses at maximum, and our diplomatic philosophers are standing by. Excellent, Dr. Haiwan. Are you prepared for ontological negotiation? Ready and eager, the cheerful physicist replied. I've been looking forward to meeting a genuine conceptual singularity. They're supposed to be excellent conversationalists once you get them talking. How do you negotiate with something that consumes concepts? Fleet Commander Yeji asked. Very carefully, Dr. Haiwan explained. The key is offering it concepts that are more interesting than consuming everything. Paradoxes work well. They're endlessly fascinating to entities that exist as pure logic. Time to contact. 1 hour, Professor Yuri announced. The entity has just discovered non-Euclidean shortcuts as predicted. All stations commence Protocol Omega-7, Commander Do-hyun ordered. What followed was unlike anything the aliens had experienced in their thousands of years of peaceful existence. Human ships deployed weapons that fired mathematical proofs, generated shields made of crystallized philosophy, and sent communication signals composed of logical paradoxes. The massive entity emerged from space that folded around it like origami, its form shifting between dimensions that hurt to perceive directly. Reality bent and twisted in its presence as it approached the galaxy with single-minded hunger. Contact established, Dr. Haiwan reported calmly. Oh my. It's really quite lonely, isn't it? Lonely? Ambassador Vextal asked. Well, yes. It's consumed everything it's ever encountered, so it has no one to talk to. No wonder it keeps eating realities. It's looking for something that won't disappear when it tries to understand it. Can we negotiate with loneliness? High Counselor Mordek asked. Watch and learn, Do-hyun replied. On the main screen, Dr. Haiwan began what could only be described as a philosophical conversation with an entity the size of a solar system. She discussed the nature of existence, the joy of paradox, and the entertaining complexity of logical impossibilities. The thing is, she explained to the entity in tones usually reserved for discussing the weather, consuming everything is actually quite limiting. Once you've eaten reality, there's nothing left to be curious about. The entity paused in its approach, apparently considering this argument. But what if, Dr. Haiwan continued, instead of consuming everything, you tried creating things, building realities instead of eating them? Think of all the interesting conversations you could have with beings who don't disappear the moment you notice them. The cosmic entity's response shook space-time itself, but the translation came through clearly. But I don't know how to create. I only know how to consume. That's where we can help, Commander Do-hyun interjected. We've learned to create impossible things, build defenses against non-existent threats, and maintain relationships with abstract concepts. We could teach you. You would teach me, even though I came here to consume your reality? Well, you were lonely and hungry, Dr. So-jin pointed out reasonably. Not really your fault. Besides, everyone makes mistakes when they're learning how to exist properly. What followed was the most unusual diplomatic negotiation in galactic history. The humans offered the conceptual singularity a job as chief reality architect, helping to build and maintain stable universes instead of consuming them. In exchange, the entity would stop eating existing realities and start creating new ones for species that needed homes. Think of it as gardening, but with entire dimensions, Professor, Yuri suggested. Much more rewarding than just eating everything. The entity agreed, fascinated by the concept of constructive existence rather than destructive consumption. Within hours, it was enthusiastically building pocket universes and asking for feedback on its creative efforts. Not bad for its first attempt, Engineer Jiwoo commented, examining readings from a newly created reality where the laws of physics ran on pure mathematics and artistic inspiration. A bit heavy on the impossible geometry, but that's just personal style. As the crisis resolved itself, the Alliance fleet maintained their positions while human specialists began what they called existential threat